In the time of ancient winds and forgotten seas, one poor fisherman cast his net, hoping for food, but pulled up something far more dangerous. A sealed jar, hidden beneath the waves for centuries, and inside, a powerful genie filled with rage. But this story is not just about magic and fear, it's about wisdom, mercy, and how a tale, told at the right moment, might save a life. Settle in and listen closely. This is the story of the fisherman and the Ifrit. Let me tell you what happened to a poor fisherman, one of the strangest stories I've ever heard. Long ago, in a faraway land by the sea, there lived a fisherman. He was a kind man and very patient, but life wasn't easy for him. Every morning, before the sun even came up, he would leave his small home with nothing but his fishing net. He would walk to the shore, stand by the water, and cast his net. Just 4 times a day. That was his rule. No more, no less. Now, on this particular morning, the sky was still dark and the air was cold. The fisherman walked slowly over the rocks. His stomach was empty and his heart felt heavy. You see, he hadn't caught anything the day before and his family had gone to bed hungry. Still, he hoped that today would be different. He whispered a quiet prayer, then threw his net into the sea for the first time. When he pulled it back, it was heavy, but not with fish, just mud and broken bits of old pottery. Nothing to eat. He cleaned the net and threw it again. The second time, he brought up sharp stones and old animal bones. Still nothing. He tried a third time, but this time, the net came back torn and tangled, filled with seaweed and trash. He looked down, sighed, and didn't say a word. Now there was only one try left. He sat down on a rock, looked out at the sea, and said to himself, "One last try, then I'll go home empty-handed again." He took a deep breath, stood up, and threw his net far out into the water, hoping, just hoping, something might come. And this time, something did. The net felt different. It was heavy, but not like before. It wasn't full of fish, it felt solid. He pulled and pulled with all his strength, and when he finally brought it to the shore, what did he find? Not a fish, but a large brass jar, old and covered in salt from the sea. Its neck was sealed tight with a thick lead stopper. On that seal were strange symbols, and the name of a powerful king, Sulaiman, the son of Dawood. Peace be upon them. When the fisherman saw the jar, he couldn't believe his eyes. "Maybe this is treasure," he said softly. "Maybe today my luck has finally changed." He picked up the jar and gave it a small shake, but it made no sound. He cleaned it with his sleeve and carefully opened the seal on top. As soon as the seal came off, a strange sound filled the air, a long, deep hiss, like air escaping. Then something strange happened. Thick smoke began to pour out of the jar. It rose high into the sky, turning round and round like a spinning cloud. The fisherman stepped back, surprised and afraid. The smoke kept rising, and then it started to take shape. Slowly, it turned into a huge figure, tall and frightening. It was an Ifrit, a kind of jinn, made from fire and smoke. Its eyes were red and glowing, and it looked very angry. The fisherman was so afraid that he fell back on the ground. The Ifrit lifted his head and laughed loudly. "Finally, after all these years, I'm free." The fisherman looked up, shaking. "Who are you?" he asked. The Ifrit looked down at him. "I am one of the jinn who disobeyed King Sulaiman, the son of Dawood, because I was proud and refused to follow him. He punished me. He trapped me inside this jar and threw me deep into the sea." The fisherman stood there terrified. He had shown mercy, freed a creature from centuries of imprisonment. With a voice cold and resolute, the Ifrit explained how, in the first 100 years of his captivity, he had promised gold and treasure to anyone who released him, but no one had come. In the 2nd century, he offered 3 wishes. Still no one came. In the 3rd 100 years, he vowed to make his rescuer a king over all the worlds, but again, silence. By the time the 4th century passed, anger had consumed him. He swore that if anyone ever freed him, he would kill them without hesitation. The fisherman was afraid, but not foolish. He knew he couldn't fight such a powerful being, not with strength or weapons, so he turned to what he did have, his mind. He calmly asked how such a huge and powerful creature had fit into such a small jar. It wasn't a challenge, just a question that didn't make sense to him. The Ifrit, insulted at first, flared with pride, but then, eager to prove the truth, he began to change. His form dissolved into smoke, curling and twisting, shrinking down until it was nothing but mist, slipping back inside the very jar he had been sealed in for centuries. And that was the moment the fisherman had been waiting for. He leaped forward, grabbed the lid, and sealed the jar jar shut with the lid stopper. A furious roar erupted from inside. The Ifrit shouted, demanding to be released, offering riches, anything the fisherman could dream of. But the fisherman didn't believe him. The genie had just sworn to kill him. Why should he trust him now? The voice from inside shifted. It became softer, more desperate. The Ifrit pleaded, said he had spoken in anger, and now recognized the fisherman's cleverness. He promised to do no harm and swore by the Most High that his words were true. The fisherman stood at the edge of the sea, jar in hand. He could throw it into the waves and be done with it forever, and part of him wanted to. But he wasn't a cruel man, just careful. What if the genie really had changed? Still uncertain, fisherman didn't make a decision right away. Instead, he placed the jar gently on the sand and chose to speak. Before acting, he wanted to share a story, one that had stayed in his memory, a tale about a wise man named Duban and a king named Yunan, a story that might help the Ifrit understand why trust, once broken, is not so easily given again. And so he began the story of King Yunan and the wise sage Duban, a tale of kindness repaid with betrayal, and how wisdom is often ignored when fear takes its place. A long time ago, in a faraway land, there lived a great king named Yunan. He ruled over a vast kingdom with beautiful city, grain fields, and mountains that touched the sky. His people respected him, and he was known to be generous and just. But King Yunan had a terrible illness. His skin was covered in strange boils and rashes. His body burned with fever, and no healer in the land could help him. He had tried potions, ointments, even magic spells, but nothing worked. Day after day, the pain grew worse, and his heart grew heavy. Then one day, a man arrived at the gates of the palace. He was not rich or dressed in fine clothes. In fact, he looked like a simple traveler, but there was something wise in his eyes and calm in his voice. He introduced himself as Duban, a wandering sage and physician. He said, "I have heard of your illness, O king, and with the help of my knowledge and the power of the Almighty, I believe I can cure you without potions or pain." Now the king had heard many promises before, but something about this man's eyes, sharp, clear, and kind, made him pause. He allowed the sage into his court. Duban knelt before the throne and said, "Your Majesty, I know your illness, and I know how to heal it, but I will not give you medicine to swallow or a salve to spread. My cure is different." King Yunan was a curious man. He had tried so many things before. Why not this? So he agreed. Duban asked for a polo stick, a simple one, like the king used to play his favorite game. Then, using special oils and powders from his bag, he coated the stick with a mixture no one had ever seen before. When it was ready, he handed it to the king and said, "Play your game and let the sweat and movement carry the cure through your body." The king agreed, more out of boredom than belief. He rode out and played a few rounds of the game, swinging the stick and sweating under the sun. That evening, when he returned to his palace, he noticed something strange. His skin was less red. The next morning, the sores were smaller, and by the third day, they were gone completely. The court was stunned. The king was overjoyed. He dressed the sage in robes of honor, gave him gold, a home, and everyone praised Duban for his gift. Time passed. Duban became one of the king's most trusted men. He dined with the court, sat in council, and spoke gently when others argued. The people loved him too, for he healed the poor just as he healed the king. But not everyone was happy. There was a jealous vizier in the court, a man full of pride and fear. He saw how much the king admired Duban and grew angry. In his heart he said, "If Duban rises, I will fall. I must get rid of him." So the advisor began whispering into the king's ear. At first, he used gentle words such as, "Be careful, your majesty. You know little about this man." Then darker ones, "What if he is a spy? What if his cure was only the beginning of a deeper plan?" The king brushed it off, saying, "You are wrong. Duban is a man of honor. He cured me when all others failed." But the whispering didn't stop. Day after day, the advisor fed poison into his heart, and little by little, the king began to doubt. One evening, he sat alone in the garden. He thought of the vizier's words, of his own fear of death, of how quickly trust could be broken. The next morning, the king called for Duban. The wise sage entered smiling as always, unaware of what had changed. But the king's face was cold. The king said, "You have done me great service, but now I fear your power. I must protect myself." Duban stood before him, calm, and said, "Why would you do this to me, your majesty? I gave you back your life." The king replied, "I must have you executed." Then the sage said something that stopped everyone in their tracks. "If you must take my life, then I accept it, but I ask for one last gift. Let me return home and collect a book I wrote. It holds secrets of medicine and magic, knowledge I hope to pass down to your kingdom. After I am gone, it will be yours." The king allowed it. Later, the sage returned with a large book, bound in leather and thick with pages. pages. He handed it to the king, saying, "Read only a few lines each day. Inside, you will find the wisdom of many lifetimes." Then, without another word, he laid down his head and was executed. That night, the king opened the book, but as he turned the pages, he found them blank. He flipped another and another, still blank. Then suddenly, a fine powder rose from between the pages. It floated into the air and into his face. Within hours, the king was coughing. His skin burned. The same sickness he had been cured of had returned, worse than before. It was not a spell or trick. It was knowledge used the wrong way. The sage had never wanted revenge, but he had left a warning. Even the wisest man cannot save a king who listens to envy more than reason. The fisherman paused then, letting the story settle in the silence between the sea breeze and the waves. And to the Ifrit inside the jar he said, "That is why I tell you this tale. You swore to kill the one who freed you, just like the king killed the one who healed him. So you tell me now, what kind of creature are you? The kind who learns from this story, or the kind who repeats it?" That's where our story pauses today. And just like that, the fisherman stood there, jar in hand, the Ifrit's voice still echoing from inside. He was caught between mercy and caution. Should he open the jar again, or throw it deep into the sea, never to be found? But before we discover what the fisherman chose, there's another tale we must hear. The very last story told by Duban the sage, moments before his execution, a final attempt to open King Yunan's heart and perhaps even save his own life. That story, my friend, is for the next episode. So join me next time, and remember, in these ancient tales, one story always leads to another. Stories are not just for passing time, they are warnings wrapped in wonder. Until next time.